Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Play Ghost Trick. Today, the endgame begins. We never found out who you really were, but that doesn't matter now. All I know is I'm truly glad I met you tonight. Thank you for everything, and I'm glad I met you, Detective. But we're going to see each other again, right, Sissy? Right, Missile? That's right, we promised, little lady. Of course we will, somehow. I'll never forget you, no matter what happens. Here goes, then. Good luck, friend. Off on a torpedo for the second time today. Me and our dog. Wherever we are. Naturally, the mystery of us didn't seem to be solved, but I'm sure something will happen in the next chapter and a half worth of gameplay to resolve that scenario. These 12 seconds are lasting an eternity. I strive to think of a way to save Lynn and the little lady the whole time. But how can a ray of light of hope reach this far deep down into the deep sea? That's actually a bit of foreshadowing. Before I can think of an answer, the 12 seconds are up. Thankfully, we don't have to do this ourselves. The game does it for us in a cutscene. We can just assume that Sissel and Missile stop time as often as they need to until they're absolutely certain they're right at the control room itself. And yeah, poor Jowd. Detective Jowd! I bet that big masked man did this. I'm gonna bite him. You better not, you might break your teeth. The command room has lost power and it's sinking, so I wonder what the masked man is gonna do. Let's talk to Jowd. Talk in the non-conventional ghost sense. Let's say hi. Check it out. The other Sissel's body has a core. Sorry for the wait, Jowd. Who are you? Are you Sissel? Please excuse my appearance. I can't believe you made it here. How is Kamala? What about Lynn? Well, it's kind of a long story. This whole game's a long story. I told Jan, okay. Filled him in. Is the submarine so badly damaged? Why would he do that to his own submarine? I wish I knew. I know the answer to that one. It's because he's afraid of my powers. Hey, it's the other guy. You followed us? I didn't even notice. It's been 10 long years, Detective Jowd. Remember all that stuff I said about the Missile having 2 cores specifically so Sissel and Missile could ride it? And about how this game pays very close attention to detail? Well, apparently I was wrong, because this guy followed us on some 3rd core we didn't see. Are you Yomiel? And now we have a name. Yomiel is derived from the Japanese word yumigairu, meaning to be revived. It fits in with the fact that he's continually revived from death by the Temsic fragment that used to be embedded in his body. Anyway, how could I possibly forget? So that's your real name, huh? Yomiel? That's right. But those people on the Ino were calling you Sissel. That's just an alias I was using for my deal with them. I didn't see any need to tell them my real name. Could you do me a favor? Would you let me ask you some questions? I've been trying to find out my true identity all night. Sure, go ahead. I'm sure there's plenty we can still tell you, right, Jowd? Right. Well, here we go. Let's learn about Yomiel. 10 years ago, you were a top systems engineer, weren't you? What's that? By the way, I'm a top Pomeranian, you know. Thanks for the levity. Well, it's kind of hard to explain to a dog, but it's a person who's good at using computers. I don't mean to brag, but I was one of the best in the industry. That's how I got roped into joining that project. What project? It was a project aimed at reorganizing the nation's top-secret information. The goal was to build a new system using multidimensional programming theory. I was asked to join the project by an agent of the government. It doesn't sound like something a top Pomeranian would know anything about. To me, it just sounds like another challenging job. I'm not sure why Jowd feels the need to explain to the dog, but I guess we want to feel like everyone's in on the story. This project was also the target of a secret plot. I bet you can imagine the kind of crime the nation's top secrets might attract. I never thought for the life of me I'd ever have to deal with spies. It was never made public, but every organization in the country moved in on this one. And then, one day, the name of a certain programmer emerged as a suspect. So that explains how we wind up at the detective's office. I was the guy who built the core of the system. The police arrested you, and then that incident happened. He escaped and took Lynn as a hostage. By the way, Jowd, when was it that I was proven innocent? About 6 months after your supposed death. I'm so sorry, Yomiel. 10 years ago. This does deserve a flashback as usual. Just for impact. Haha, no pun intended. My soul was split from my body and I lost everything. I was sealed in eternal darkness. I existed in this world, no question about that. I guess we have to wait for this whole thing to play out. But nobody noticed my presence. It's unclear how this works, because certainly he's capable of making people notice him, you know, during the plot of the game. Not even the passage of time could heal my pain. Walking along, in fact, it only made it worse. Hey, it's Twitchy. We don't really want to talk with that guy. It's no big loss that you can't interact with him. And her, oh god. I wanted this to disappear, but I wasn't even allowed to do that. The way Lynn described it is exactly right. Sinking slowly toward the bottom of an endless sea. An overwhelming feeling of loneliness and despair. And I wanted all of you to suffer what I was suffering. Again, Ace, you certainly can impact our lives, so that's why you murdered Alma. That's right. I wanted you to know what it was like to lose everything you cared about. I wanted you to feel the same pain I felt. It was the twisted wish of a mind poisoned by infinite loneliness, and then, as I was plotting my revenge, I had an idea. I came up with a plan to use these powers of mine to make a deal. And I'm sure we know the details of this already, but let's hear explicitly from Yomiya. I'm sure your powers would be very valuable to them, but what would you get out of the deal? A new life. Life? I asked them for two conditions. Number one was that they help me with my revenge plot, and the second was a rebirth for me. A new beginning, eh? I didn't care if it was a fake life, an artificial life, I just wanted a physical receptacle for my soul, a name, an identity, and everyday life. I wanted to grow old in a society that would accept me, and finally I wanted to die, surrounded by a loving family. That's the kind of life I asked them for. A completely man-made life. That's right. I knew I couldn't hope for anything more than that. To make it all come true, I knew it would take a lot of money and a lot of power. That's why I decided to ask a national government to help me. And the response in the end was betrayal. Naturally, we know. Well, let's hear it again from him. They were making their moves much more carefully than I suspected. They sent spies to this country and researched my powers on their own. And they even figured out what Temsic was all about. And you had no idea they were doing all of this? None at all. I was a fool. So then, why'd they go through all the trouble of making a deal with you? Why didn't they just steal a hunk of the Temsic meteorite from the park? They couldn't. Huh? After the manipulator incident, research was conducted in this country too. Remember, from the Pigeon Man? There he is. A report was submitted to the government about the source of the manipulator's power. But guess who? Nobody else gets to make an entrance quite like him. Pigeon Man doesn't even get to shuffle onto the scene. At first, the government didn't believe the report. But then they decided to put the park under surveillance just in case. Surveillance, huh? It just looks like an ordinary peaceful park, but there are armed agents there at all times. Hey, check it out, Switchy. Don't tell me. Don't tell me that odd leaflet guy is one of them. No, not him, he's just a plain old odd person. Yep, exactly as I told you, he's completely useless to the plot. Except as an extra pair of eyes. That park is like a silent battlefield on an international scale. So that's why they couldn't steal the Temsic meteorite. And lately, under the pretense of building a housing site, they've been working on a plan to destroy that park in order to secure the meteorite themselves. So that's it, eh? This also explains why Lynn felt safe sending Kamala through the park at night. So the upshot of your grand deal was this, eh? Also, it doesn't really explain, though, if it was so tightly guarded, how did someone get away with a kidnapping? Anyway, moving on. It's the ending I deserve. But at least there's one thing you must be happy about. What's that? You've managed to seal me away at the bottom of the sea forever. Well, shall we get started? Started with what? Bringing Jowd back to life, of course. What good will that do now? But we promised! We promised Miss Lynn and Miss Kamala we'd save them. And we can't do that without you, Jowd. I've been guided by fate tonight to this place. I won't give up now. Alright, fine. Let's see where it leads us. Here we go then, back to 4 minutes before your death. Turns out we're not going very far. In case you hadn't noticed, there's not a lot to do in this room. There's no power, we can't manipulate anything. But at least Jowd's still alive this time. So, where are we headed? We are not headed anywhere, Detective. What? There was only enough fuel on board to launch us away. We will run out soon and that will be our destination. What are you talking about? That would mean that you're trapped here too. Check it out. He's a robot. By the way, I am not human. He's a Harlem Globetrotter. I am a remote-controlled robot. What? It's much more useful than the fruit-picking machines they have. This country's pretty far along. I almost wonder if we're rooting for the wrong people, just because, like, this other country is so awesome. Why would you go through all the trouble to do this? There's nothing but a shell there. It's hardly a threat anymore. Commander Sith likes to provide against any possibility, no matter how small, Detective. Possibility? What are you talking about? There's no need for you to know. Thankfully, we managed to launch ourselves on a torpedo. Oh wow, that was new. How come we didn't get to do that while we were here in Chapter 2? We could have ended the whole game. Now it's time to say goodbye, Detective. In the end, your fate remains the same, it seems. Grr. Kamala, forgive me. Pretty brutal, as usual. Gunned down by a submachine gun and still no blood. It isn't over yet. It isn't? Remember what that big masked man said? Any possibility, no matter how small. Possibility? In other words, there must be a chance here somewhere. The possibility of turning the situation around. It's actually not that small. Like, if there were a million things to do in this room, I would say, yes, it would be well obscured, but actually there's practically nothing to do. Let's take a look. Yep, check it out. Huh? What is it, Detective? Look at Yomiel's shell. There's no aura emanating from his body. Yep, because the meteorite fragment is gone. The fragment, yeah, exactly what he said. Could this change in his shell give us some kind of lead? Gee, I wonder. So remember, we have a limit of 1 day on being able to actually resurrect someone, but Yomiel's body was sealed at the moment of his death, so now the meteorite fragment has been removed. I figured it out. I know what this possibility, no matter how small, that they're afraid of is. What is it? My time was perpetually stopped. Yeah, so they're just going to explain exactly what I just said. Right, but not anymore. The fragment has been taken away. Exactly, so what does that mean? I get it. Your body won't come back to life anymore. The moment the fragment was removed, my shell became a regular corpse. So let's see, that means we can go back to 4 minutes before your death. But wait a minute, exactly when is that death? That's simple. We'll find out. When we get there, let's move. So now we're going to rewind time. One last time. Check out this scene. Way back. I fell back through the cracks of time for what seemed like forever, and then I saw it. The final death at the end of this long night. Who exactly am I? I've already seen all the clues. All I have to do now is remember. The final journey to the truth starts now. Well, for Sissel it starts now, but for the rest of us it'll start tomorrow. This episode, this last death sequence definitely deserves its own episode, and I'll see you tomorrow on the next episode of Let's Play Ghost Trick.